I was having y'all. It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. Now, the Washington Commanders preparing to trade away Jonathan Allen and Darrick. Forrest, we only have a few days left for the trade deadline. Are these two now expendable based on how players currently on the roster are stepping up big time? We're going to dive into whether we should trade either of those two players and why, who the guys that are stepping up in their place, what they're doing. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Make sure you pull up for every video. I'm about to be spamming y'all with videos because I wasn't able to do any video yesterday during Halloween because it's a really big thing for my family and me. So like I just couldn't even find time yesterday. I apologize. So now I'm hitting y'all with a bunch of videos leading up to this Giants game, which I'm also streaming. We'll be live streaming all 4 quarters of that Giants game on Sunday. So make sure you pull up for that. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with Jonathan Allen, and I gotta say, man, poor Jonathan Allen. I mean, I know he wasn't playing as well as we'd hoped when he was still healthy at a certain point in this season before he got hurt against the Ravens, and I know he wasn't living up to the Pro Bowl expectations that a lot of us had for him. But first of all, I do want to point out the fact that he was impacting the game in a way that maybe it doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. It wasn't like he was just purely getting obliterated and he was just a non-factor. We still miss him, but I know he wasn't living up to the expectations that we had for the guy. And then on top of that, he ended up tearing his pectoral muscle, which now he's out for season. He's not even on the IR. Like Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who got hurt in that game as well, went to the injury reserve, but that's more of like a temporary one, so where he's out at least 4 weeks, but he's not going to be gone for the entire season. Jonathan Allen is done until 2025, and I felt really bad for him because, first of all, should have never happened. Let's just talk about how the refs, even with the I believe that was the same possession that Benjamin St-Juste got called for that phantom pass interference after they didn't call the one on Noah Brown where the Ravens defender is literally pulling down his jersey's collar and then he misses the football by like a couple of inches. So if it weren't for that, if it wasn't for the holding that the defensive player was doing, pass interference, whatever you want to call it, then Noah Brown probably makes that catch in the game, and then we ended up not scoring points on our drive, I think. Then fast forward a little while later, Benjamin St-Juste is called for a pass interference when a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver literally falls into his hands. The only reason he's touching them is because the guy fell into him, but they called that one instead. Not the Noah Brown one, but the Benjamin St-Juste one. Cool. But I believe that was the same drive that a few plays later, that's when Jonathan Allen ends up suffering his season-ending injury. And so a lot of people say refs don't affect the game. I beg to differ. Not even just games, but entire seasons. It happens to everybody, but it does feel like it happens to us more than a lot of other teams. But again, we just lost a starting defensive lineman, one of our biggest cap hits on the entire season, on the entire team, to just a random play that should have never happened if refs didn't hate on us. So when people say that, you know, refs don't affect games and things like that, remember that right there. But again, the most important reason that I'm bringing this up is because I feel sorry for him, man. I mean, to be out for the season is crazy, but then also for somebody to step into your place and ball out the way that Johnny Newton has done, man. I mean, just against the Bears alone, that guy had 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 forced fumble, and technically a fumble recovery with that ridiculous play call from Shane Waldron, and then also 3 quarterback hits, and of course he had the sack. At first they wanted to act like it was a tackle for loss, so scratch that tackle for loss. Dan Quinn fought on his behalf to the NFL to bring it to their attention to relook at the play and make sure that they get it right, and then that tackle for loss has now been changed to a sack. So shouts out to Dan Quinn for standing up for his player like that. But either way, in 18 pass rushing snaps, this guy had 7 pressures, a career high, first of all, his first career sack, a fumble recovery, a 31.3% pass rush win rate, and a 90.9 pass rush grade from Pro Football Focus. That is absolutely insane. How about just week 8 alone, Johnny Newton among all interior defensive linemen, all defensive tackles, not edge rushers, but defensive tackles, he was first with 7 pressures. He was first with that 31.3% win rate and first in 43.8% pressure rate. First, out of all interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL, that's including Chris Jones, that's including Dexter Lawrence, that's including all of these big dogs that's been doing it for years, Johnny Newton in rookie season, week 8, already killing it like that. And just to let you know, he ended up with an 89.2 overall grade. Again, he ended up with a 90.9 pass rush grade. That's insane. And out of his 7 total pressures, 1 was a sack, 3 were hits, and 3 were hurries. So we're not just talking about a bunch of hurries, because remember, we used to love Preston Smith. We used to always say, man, he's always one step away. He gets a lot of pressures, but they just don't turn into anything more than pressures. Well, not only is Johnny Newton getting quarterback hits instead of pressures, but he also got a sack in that game as well. So shouts out to Johnny Newton there. And so in comparison to Jonathan Allen's, I guess you could say, best game all season was the 72.9 overall grade he had versus the Cleveland Browns. And in 6 games, Jonathan Allen had 13 total pressures, and then Johnny Newton went out there and had 7 in one game. Like, Johnny Newton outperformed half of Jonathan Allen's production for the entire season in just one game, again, within Jonathan Allen's 6 games. That's absolutely insane. And then on top of all of that, Johnny Newton is also on a cheap second-round rookie contract. This guy is a $1.7 million cap hit this year, a $2.2 million cap hit in 2025, $2.6 million cap hit in 2026, and then a $3.1 million cap hit in 2027. I'm pretty sure, based off of the way that he's playing right now, we're going to extend him before we even get to that 2027 cap hit. It's going to probably be some big time extension, but you see my point, because in comparison to Jonathan Allen's contract right now, he is a $21.4 million cap hit in 2022, again going to Johnny Newton's. He's a 1.7 compared to Jonathan Allen's 21.4. And then in 2025, Jonathan Allen is a $23 million cap hit. And just to remind you, again, Johnny Newton is a $2.2 million cap hit. I mean, an entire $20 million against the cap cheaper every season for these next 2 seasons. And also, Johnny Newton is signed on a longer term deal. Johnny Newton's contract doesn't end until after the 2027 NFL season. Jonathan Allen's ends after the 2025 NFL season. And should the Commanders go ahead and get ahead of this and go ahead and trade him off to somebody before the contract ends, and then you end up losing them for nothing, he walks in free agency. So I know the Commanders, Adam Peters and those guys are already thinking about it. But that also begs the question, who would even trade for an out for season, 30-year-old, big cap hit defensive tackle right now? Because even, I mean, when you're looking at his contract and you're saying, okay, he's a $21.4 million cap hit in 2024, he's not playing anymore in 2024. So really, he only has 1 year left on his deal, technically, which is 2025, which is when he is a $23 million cap hit. And at that point, he will be 30 years old going into that season. Like, what would a team even necessarily be willing to give up for, again, an out for season 30-year-old big cap hit at defensive tackle? Like, I could see if Jonathan Allen wasn't hurt, and then you could still sell to maybe like a Super Bowl contender in the 2024 season on how Jonathan Allen could come in and make you just enough better to increase your chances of winning or improving your interior defensive line. At least something. There's at least a sale to be made there. If you had to be a car salesman on the situation, at least you could pitch to a Super Bowl contender. You better trade for him now, because he may be just enough of a difference to end up winning you a ring. Maybe you're just slightly weak at interior defensive lineman, and maybe Jonathan Allen isn't having his best season so far this year, but he could be just enough of a difference to make you that much better, to give you that much of a chance of winning a Super Bowl this year. But since he's out for season, you can't. So what could Jonathan Allen's market even look like right now? What could it even be? No sorry team rebuilding right now wants to take on a huge contract like that, and especially at an older age. And again, he's only available for the 2025 season. You can go ahead and forget the 2024 season, and he's a $23 million cap hit for 2025. Why would a rebuilding team even take on a contract like that? And then again, no contending team wants a player that can't contribute right now. Yeah, we're in a Super Bowl window for 2024, but hey, make sure you trade for this guy that will be available for you in 2025. Who knows what happens in 2025? Maybe you're not even a Super Bowl contender, but hey, go ahead and trade for this guy right now. Like, it just doesn't make sense on either way. So my point is, he may actually be fairly untradeable right now. Because even if you did really want to trade him, like even if the Commanders, Adam Peters, and these guys want to get rid of him, because of those factors I just gave you, teams are going to severely lowball us. Like if we were to trade him right now, you wouldn't be able to get much in return. Remember we traded John Ridgeway for like a 6th round pick. I'm not sure if Jonathan Allen's going to give you much more than that, because John Ridgeway, though not as good as Jonathan Allen at all, doesn't have the accolades, doesn't have the stats or anything like that, is healthier right now by far, is younger, and is getting paid way less money. It's ugly, and I just don't think it's worth it to trade him, honestly, for me, for a 5th round pick or later. I just don't think we should do Jonathan Allen that dirty, because at the very least, he's one of the strong leaders of this team. And I truly believe that if he didn't get hurt against the Ravens, he was going to find a rhythm and start to play better, because we're starting to see Daron Payne make a bigger impact. And as if Johnny Newton gets better, that would have made things easier for everybody else around him as well. So I can still say, even just looking at the film, love Jonathan Allen and his ability to penetrate. But like I said, as soon as we found out Jonathan Allen got hurt, before Johnny Newton even had the great game against the Bears, the way we're going to miss Jonathan Allen is that he's a better 2-gapper. He's a guy that can stand up a guard or whoever, a center, and then control both gaps. And if he sees the running back coming to either side, he can get rid of the alignment to the other side and then make the play. That's what Jonathan Allen's probably better at than most of the defensive linemen we have on this team. Johnny Newton is elite at getting in the backfield. That's what I said as soon as we drafted him. He's probably going to be our best pass rushing defensive lineman immediately. But when it comes to stopping the run, if Johnny Newton's not running right past an offensive guard right in front of him, an offensive lineman right in front of him, like immediately as soon as the ball is snapped, or like quickly after using his explosion and some technique to get by them, he's typically going to be blocked out of the play sometimes. And it's even showed in the Bears game where sometimes like he can't handle really a double team. Jonathan Allen's not great against a double team, but Johnny Newton definitely at this point in his career cannot handle double teams. And it looks like, just based off of his traits, his weaknesses, his strengths, and things like that, even just his build, I just don't ever foresee him being like a great double team either. That's more of like a Fedarian Mathis, but John Allen and Daron Payne can kind of get away with it a little bit, and Johnny Newton, I don't really see him being successful against it at all. As far as getting to the quarterback, which is what you care the most about, yeah, Johnny Newton has the highest ceiling of this entire defensive, at least the interior defensive line, but my point is, we still miss Jonathan Allen in certain ways, certain strategic things, where if we're going against a team where 2-gapping is a little bit better, then Jonathan Allen has more experience for that. He's shown that he can be better at that as well. So we miss him. Get well soon. I just don't see how he's really tradable at this point. I mean, it would be cool. Like, if there was some type of market out there, maybe I would hear it out. But I don't really see a market right now, to be completely honest. What team would even trade for him right now? But also, moving on, what about Darrick Forrest? Because on October 30th, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler noted that Commanders safety Darrick Forrest is a name to watch as the trade deadline nears, as he is in a similar scenario like Bills safety Mike Edwards. He said in his article, veteran Buffalo safety Mike Edwards is available and he would like to go somewhere he can play because he has been a steady and active. Washington's Darrick Forrest is in a similar situation, a former starter who's out of the rotation and could need a fresh start elsewhere. Vikings linebacker Brian Asamoah, I hope that's how you pronounce that name, a former 3rd rounder who hasn't made an impact in Brian Flores' defense, is a trade candidate as well. So he was just trying to find a whole bunch of players that, you know, typically would have a bigger impact on another defense, but with the defense and the team that they're currently on, they're kind of being put on the shelf right now, and they deserve a better chance to go elsewhere and have a larger impact than where they are currently having right now. And on top of that, you even saw Darrick Forrest tweet at 5:17 p.m. on October 30th, humble beast with prayer emoji. And so maybe he heard about it. Maybe he saw that Jeremy Fowler article and was like, bet. Because then even shortly after that, he said them apologies gonna be as loud as that disrespect. So maybe even after seeing the Jeremy Fowler article, maybe he started to see Commanders fans agree online on Twitter or something like that. And so now that takes me to the point of Darrick Forrest. For me, honestly, I believe he's still a good player. Like, I've learned to give this organization the benefit of the doubt with every decision they've made and every decision that they will make in the future. And so even though I believe Darrick Forrest still has starter talent, I don't question why they don't play him outside of special teams too much. And since I believe he still has good talent, I believe that we should just probably go ahead and trade him so he can shine elsewhere. I feel like, if anything, do him a favor by trading him. I feel like he deserves that opportunity. There are plenty of teams that would be better with a Darrick Forrest on their teams and out there playing on Sundays. I truly believe that. And it just seems like we're not one of those teams. And that maybe the Commanders right now just keeping him around in case of injury or something like that. But right now, Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin have a great thing going. And Percy Butler is stepping up and making plays whenever he's in the rotation as well. Like, you're 3 deep at safety right now, and Darrick Forrest really only plays just about in special teams. The only time he actually played in a game for like a few snaps, I believe that was the game where Quan Martin was banged up or something like that. So one of the safeties was banged up. And I'm still confused as to how Darrick Forrest can contribute. I really feel like there has to be some way he can get on the field and make your defense better. But at least the 3 safeties that are playing for us right now are playing very well. Quan Martin just led our team in both tackles and solo tackles by a good margin versus the Bears last weekend. And then Jeremy Chin has been given credit for the communication improvement in the secondary from Joe Witt Jr., and he's an athletic freak. So you just see the potential there for him to get even better and more impactful. And then Percy Butler has been good in both coverage and been a good open field tackler when I've noticed him on the field. So it's really to a point where it's just like, where does Darrick Forrest actually fit in here? Again, if I were defensive coordinator, I would find a way to get him on the field. I just feel like a guy that big, that can move that well, that agile, that quick, that fast, can have some sort of impact even outside of just special teams, especially since he has more than a year's worth of experience as a starting safety in the NFL. So I don't even feel like it's a Tyler Owens situation where he's an athletic freak, but he still kind of got to learn defense a little bit more, learn the nuances of being a safety at the NFL level. Darrick Forrest already has a lot of that. I'm guessing he doesn't have enough of it to their standards, but again, I just feel like he's a great enough player to where at least go ahead and trade him away, man. If you're not utilizing them here, stop keeping them on the shelf. It's like an artist on a bad deal, and then the record label just shelves them because they don't care about them. They don't know what to do with them. I'm not saying the Commanders don't care about them, but it just gets to a point where just let them go, man. Just let them go. Let them go somewhere else, find a new home, and let them ball out there. And in return, you could potentially get a decent draft pick to pick up a player that can make you better. So you could potentially make yourself better while also mutually beneficial wise making another team better by giving them Darrick Forrest. And then also, most importantly, from Darrick Forrest's point of view, can I please go somewhere where I can actually play and contribute to a winning team? I know he's probably having fun being along with the ride that we have going on right now. He probably doesn't want to leave his brothers behind with a team that drafted him. He's been here through the sorry years. He just recovered from missing an entire season last year due to injury. And then as soon as things start going well, people are talking about trading him. I understand, but at the same time, me personally, if I'm Darrick Forrest, I'm like, please trade me to somewhere where I can play. It's nice being part of a winner, but I'm also a winner as well. I'm a competitor. I want to play. Now, I don't know, maybe he's taking it upon himself to he's telling himself, if I could just improve that much more, maybe I can steal a spot from one of these safeties that's playing ahead of you. Maybe there's that. I don't know. But either way, I just feel like at the end of the day, probably is better for us to trade him, even though I prefer to keep him. I mean, unless it's like a really good draft pick, I'm like, hey, man, it's better to have 4 good safeties than 3. You know what I'm saying? Why let another team get a better safety that would improve their defense? I mean, if anything, be selfish. And, you know, as a Commanders GM, if I'm stepping into his shoes, I just don't even want to let another team become better. Like, don't give them Darrick Forrest so they can improve defensively in their secondary. How about we hold on to him, and even though he barely plays, at least he's not helping another team that we may have to go up against in the future. So I understand from all points of view right now what's going on, but me personally, I just feel like it's the best of both worlds for all 3 worlds, really, including Darrick Forrest. You probably just go ahead and trade him. He may not want to go because he loves the brotherhood that he's a part of, and we're finally winning. Probably is really happy to be on the same team as Jaden Daniels and everything that we have going on right now. And maybe he's okay with just being a strong special teams contributor right now. Who knows? You would have to ask him. I don't know. I'm just trying to get into the mind frame of a Darrick Forrest. But at the end of the day, man, I wish him the best of luck. Same thing for Jonathan Allen, man. I wish both of these guys the best of luck. Jonathan Allen, get well soon. And Darrick Forrest, I hope you can find a way to carve out a role in this defense. I mean, it started all the way back to even the offseason where, I mean, he was hurt for a little while during training camp, but even before he got hurt, he was out there with the third stringers. And even when he came back, he was out there with the third stringers. But you could say like, okay, maybe he's with the third stringers as he ramps up. And then we started to get further and further into camp, and we started to get into the preseason, and then he started getting snaps with the starters and second stringers and things like that. But it was more so from the angle of like, let's see if he can go out there and hang with the big dogs against the starter offense and things like that. And he must not have passed the test, because now, even though he's been fully healthy this entire season, he's either been inactive for games, like literally a healthy scratch, not available going into the game, fully healthy, or he's all he's done is play on special teams. Again, there was one game where there was some injuries to our secondary. I think he played like a handful of snaps. I think that was only one game this entire season that he's either just played any snaps on defense at all. The rest of them inactive or special teams only from what I've seen. So I don't know. It's really tough. It's a very difficult situation to even talk about, because I really like Darrick Forrest. I would hate to see him go, but at the same time, I prefer for him to go somewhere where he can shine. And it doesn't necessarily seem like he can shine here unless there's an injury. And of course, we're not rooting for injuries right now at all. But being 4 deep at safety is nice. But hey, if you can get a good draft pick out of it, we can talk. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Let me know how you feel about both of these trade options. Do you feel like we should just go ahead and trade away Jonathan Allen? And if you do, what do you think we could potentially even get for him right now? And then also, how do you feel about Darrick Forrest? Do you feel like we should just go ahead and trade him now to a pretty good team where he can land somewhere where he can still play but still win at the same time? How do you feel about the Darrick Forrest situation? And if you want to trade either or both Jonathan Allen or Darrick Forrest, what draft pick do you think we could potentially get in return for them at best? Like, what's the highest draft pick possible that we could get for either of those two? So let me know how you feel about all of that in the comment section. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. But like I said, I'm trying to get a bunch of videos out before this game against the Giants, so you'll have to be patient with me there. But please, on the way out, make sure you leave a like on this video, man. On the way out, before you end this video, before you leave this video, please stiff arm that like button. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.